Another hurricane season is here. Is your family protected in case of a devastating storm? Our Local 10 weather team went all across South Florida to find out if you're prepared. So get ready, we may come knocking on your door. Now, Local 10 presents Hurricane House Call. Hello again, everyone. It's hard to believe that another hurricane season is already upon us.
And this season marks the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Andrew, the last Category 5 hurricane to hit the United States.
I'm Trent Eric.
And I'm Max Mayfield.
We're here in Country Walk, a residential community in southwest Miami-Dade, one of the hardest hit areas during Hurricane Andrew. Max, 250,000 people were left homeless in Miami-Dade County after that storm.
And we're going to start a Hurricane House Call to a nearby home and talk to a Hurricane Andrew survivor who has some amazing stories to share.
Max, is this it?
This must be it.
It was a day South Florida will never forget. August 24th, 1992. In the early morning hours, Hurricane Andrew blasted through our community, causing death and destruction along its path. But in the days before Andrew struck, few could have predicted what was to come.
You can start to hear the roar outside.
Back then, Stan Goldenberg was a researcher at the National Hurricane Center. This is the spot where Stan's house stood. 20 years later, it remains vacant. Now, Max, this lot was actually in the northern part of the eye wall of Hurricane Andrew.
That's where the strong winds were. Can you believe they haven't built the house back?
Hey Stan, how are you?
Hello?
This was actually your home during Hurricane Andrew.
It used to be, yeah. Right there was the house.
Stan remembers all too well that night.
The family here, Jonathan and Daniel, Roger.
He too was caught in the storm and documented the whole experience with his family while awaiting the birth of their fourth child.
Here we have from the hurricane to the other action in this room, which is Barbara going through labor pains. And we still have, waiting for the hurricane, beautiful skies, calm. You never know what was going to happen here in the next 12 to 14 hours or so.
And you know, we videoed at the beginning, things were light, the preparedness, everybody's jovial.
As Andrew approached, Stan gathered his family together.
And we're going to weather it out through the storm. Hi Daniel, say hi. Hi. If you can see it, the beginnings of Andrew.
Looks like our TVs are out. Maybe the power is out now for the duration of this. You can hear that outside. You can start to hear the roar outside.
By 4:30 a.m., Andrew comes ashore.
Shoot out the door 1 second here. We certainly probably have, yeah, the power is out, so I don't know if you can see anything except maybe a few lightning flashes. And we can hear things start to fly around out there. I'm sure we're approaching hurricane force winds. From here on, you'll probably just hear it.
That's when things turn serious.
In the hallway of the Goldenberg house, winds outside I think are at least 100, 110 miles an hour or more. Aaron, are you okay? Just waiting out in the hall because we lost the plywood on the front window.
When the eye wall hit, it was like someone took a gearbox and just went kavoom. I mean, it just exploded. And the first thing that happened, the plywood just started to rip off the windows. We could tell because the front picture window, which would have been about right here, front picture window exploded in.
Yes, Jonathan? Yeah? Oh, they like the little kitty.
Everybody was getting a little freaked out. So right now a hurricane was roaring through the house. And we walked from the hallway to get to the garage.
Okay, which is on this side.
Right, so
okay.
we crossed this part where the hurricane winds are just, probably major hurricane at that point, are roaring through.
And were you in the dark? The power had already gone out by then?
Yeah, I forgot. We probably had a flashlight we were using. And we got to the kitchen and they opened the door to the garage. And I'm emotional right now. Every time we talk about this story, I can feel the emotions. It's like, we opened the door to the garage and there was no garage. The garage was already gone.
Lord, we just thank you. We ask your protection.
by mid-morning,
This is Stan at 8:30 in the morning. We have been through a night.
the realization of Andrew's fury hit Stan.
Trees down everywhere. Our house, which had wood shutters, the roof lifted off. The roof lifted off. And as you can see, we have no house. This wall fell on us, containing the refrigerator, the stove. This is the wall. Fell on top of us. Stove down there, cabinets, all fell on top of us. In that small space you're looking at, the mattress and everything, that's where we were pinned and protected during the worst part of the storm.
That fell on us, and something very heavy fell on my back. And I was on my knees over the kids, and we found out it was the stove that was on my back. And so I was stretched out, if you can imagine, with your feet outstretched, with this heavy weight on my back, and my legs felt like they were being crushed.
We were underneath here, and this is where we crouched. I was pinned very heavily down there.
We didn't know till afterwards, the whole roof ripped off in one piece. The whole tie beam, everything, flew over there, smashed it, and you could see the shadow of the tie beam across their back of their house. And the roof, the remnants of the roof were just shattered all in the backyard.
A wall, the refrigerator, the stove, the cabinets, all fell on top of us. And that
In hindsight, you look back, and the refrigerator kept that wall propped up by 1 foot on the counter on the other side. If not, it would just all come down, most of it all come down on us. And 9 of us in there.
This is incredible. It has just flattened this area.
Stan's wife Barbara gave birth that weekend to a baby girl they named Pearl.
I hear having a boy makes you feel like a father, and having a girl makes you feel like a daddy, right?
Your nursery, I think, was the first room.
Today, Pearl and her brother Aaron, 4 years older and now 24, visit the spot where the family home once stood.
It's difficult to comprehend that just the entire thing was wiped out, and just really makes you realize it was a pretty powerful hurricane. It's scary.
What do you got to say about it? Was it scary?
I remember all of us watching TV beforehand, just seeing the hurricane coming. I didn't really know what it was, but I could kind of tell that people were getting scared about it, so I knew it was important.
We are glad to be alive. Hallelujah.
Whenever I watch that, the key thing with the video is like, they're so calm at the beginning. These people don't know what's going to hit them. And it brings back the emotions, the memory. It's like you look at that and say, I am grateful, I am thankful we were alive and that we survived.
Well, Stan, we really appreciate you sharing your story with us today. It's really hard to comprehend exactly what you guys went through 20 years ago.
I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons from Andrew that you've applied to the house you live in now.
I am much better prepared now. Listen, the house is just a few minutes away.
All right, let's go check it out. Up next, Max and I will make a house call at Stan's new home, and we'll see what lessons he learned from Hurricane Andrew. And later, we'll visit Zoo Miami, also devastated by that monster storm. Find out how they're preparing 20 years later.
I used to serve my country in the U.S. Army. Then, I was hit by a drunk driver and lost my legs. But that didn't change a thing, because I still serve my country. I just wear a different uniform.
Citi is joining Carrie Miller to give back to the Paralympic Military and Veterans Program. Join the movement at Citi.com/everystep and help Citi help U.S. athletes make a difference. Together, every step of the way.
The K-Pax Racing Volvo S60. 2010 GT drivers and manufacturers champions. Pirelli World Challenge contender, and competing against some of the top brands in the world. And best of all, it's available in our take-home version. Right now, get $1,000 off your Volvo S60 when you own a competitor's car. Contact your local Volvo retailer for details.
So we saw the ruins of Andrew at Stan's old house. Now we'll head to his new house. And Max, that's just a few miles away in southwest Miami-Dade.
I'm betting that, like a lot of us, he learned some valuable lessons from that hurricane.
Well, Stan, we saw your home where you lived during Hurricane Andrew. Now we're at your current place. Let's talk a little bit about the changes.
And what are some of the things you've done in this house that you didn't have during Andrew?
Big stuff. The prime thing is window coverings. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to, you can have a very effective, you can have the best built house in the world, but if you don't have good shutters, window coverings, forget it. In a strong storm, either the debris or the winds are going to shatter the windows. And I mentioned on the other house, I had wood shutters up. I had plywood, which was put on by just concrete nails, you know, and
like
they
this.
ripped off. Right, this is a totally different design, and what it is, you cut the wood that it fits on the inside of the window. You have to have a windowsill for it to work, but in the inside of the window, and you drill in there and fasten it with barrel bolts.
But those don't meet the Miami-Dade.
They're not code. You won't get insurance breaks, and they're not tested to code. But I also have on this house, to get the insurance break and to have more effective covering, I have the steel panels. And
that's really what we recommend, Max, is for people that have the resources to go with something a little bit heavier.
Yeah, the nice thing with the panels is they're pretty easy to put on, and they're very effective.
And what about your entry doors and your garage door?
Well, actually, just a few years ago, we replaced the entry doors with hurricane code doors. I don't know how you say it, Max. The only real problem now is my garage door. I really either want to replace this or put steel panels in front of the garage door.
Now, Stan didn't have this problem with his doors because his opened out, but you may want to check your home, especially if it was built before the code was up after Hurricane Andrew. You want your door to open out. That way the wind pushes the door in and your door frame adds additional protection.
How about, you mentioned losing the power in Hurricane Andrew. What do you have for backup power these days?
Well, I have a full-size generator. Well, not a whole house generator, but a large generator that's buried somewhere during non-hurricane season. But for little power needs, I mean, what I love to use is this stuff. Basically, you plug in a cigarette lighter and you've got AC power, and this is 175 watts. You can get these 575 watts from a car battery, which is really nice. But even neater is, and I use these all the time for other stuff, but even neater is to get a portable power supply.
I was looking around the neighborhood here as you were talking and noticed that your power lines are above ground, not buried.
Thanks a lot.
But the good news is I noticed there are really no trees with canopies over the power line. You just have this one out front and it looks like it's trimmed regularly. So
right, they've been trimmed, right. I made sure I trimmed this one because actually in one of the storms, it was Katrina or Wilma, some of the branches bashed in some of my awning type shutters. So before this last hurricane season, we really had to trim quite a bit.
Of all the changes that you've made over 20 years since Andrew, what's the one thing that's most valuable to you to make you feel a little safer in the next storm?
It's the window covering. It's got to have the shutters, and to me it's all about survival during the storm. And yes, you want to do well after the storm, but you could always go somewhere else, but you can't replace your life. Yeah, this is the backyard. This is a laundry room door, and it used to be with jalousie windows. So you can imagine the door with all windows, and jalousies, those narrow things, are a pain to replace. And we replaced this, like the other two front doors, with hurricane code doors.
And if you have a shed, or even if your neighbor has a shed, you want to make sure that it's very securely anchored. I remember in Hurricane Andrew, I had a neighbor, his shed went flying. I'm not sure he ever found the pieces of that.
Yeah, Max, you can see this carport behind me. Things like that can become airborne not only in a hurricane, but a severe thunderstorm even during the summer. So I encourage everyone to make friends with your neighbors because you want to help them secure their stuff during a storm as well. Because if it flies from their yard and hits your house, it doesn't matter if it belongs to you or not, it's still going to cause damage.
Now, Stan, you have what looks like to be a modified hip roof, which certainly did better than the gable ends like this, although you do have a couple of small gables. Do you know, are they reinforced on the inside?
Well, I know as the insurance inspector went up there, and it was sufficiently reinforced to give me the insurance deduction, which is important. And they're not looking just for deductions, they're looking for the house to be safe in a hurricane.
Sure. And one thing we have to remember is Hurricane Andrew was the strongest hurricane to hit one of the strongest building codes in the U.S., but yet we're still learning valuable lessons 20 years later.
It certainly tested everything we had here for sure.
You bet. Stanley, thank you so much for showing us your house and telling us all your stories. Max, what do you say we make another hurricane house call? For our next house call, Max, we're going to stay in West Broward.
When we come back, we'll check in the Local 10 anchor and colleague Jen Herrera and see if her family is prepared for the hurricane season.
New for you at 5:30, a local.
You know her as our 5:30 anchor and reporter here at Local 10.
Also making the top 10 Flamingo
Jen Herrera is a lifelong South Florida resident as well. So let's see if she's ready for this hurricane season.
Trent, here we are in western Broward County, well away from the storm surge zone, but I noticed that road kind of dips down a little bit here, so we'll have to ask Jen if there's any flood concern.
You know, Max, one other concern Jen has is not only is she a working professional, but she's a mom and a wife. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. Can we bring you outside?
Yes. Uh-oh.
Don't look nervous.
I know, already. Something's not prepared, apparently.
Lovely house.
Thank you. Thank you.
Max has it looking concerned, doesn't he?
Okay, he does.
Well,
if Max is concerned, this isn't good.
Storm shutters?
We don't have them.
But
hurricane resistant, correct?
Very good.
Okay.
Now all the windows are impact resistant?
They are. There's one door that's not, but all the windows and all the doors are around the house.
And that's something very valuable for you because obviously if a storm hits, we're at the studio and your husband is a first responder. So days out in advance of a storm, you guys have no prep time as far as your windows.
No, we're fortunate. We bought this house a few years ago, and that was a huge asset for us because, as you guys know, anytime we can be called in to work.
After we check the windows, we usually like to look right at the garage door, and looking at this one, it looks like a new door.
It is.
How new?
About 3 years old.
Okay, so this is well within the Miami-Dade and Broward County code.
It is, and from what I was told, and it's more of my husband's department, this too is hurricane, one of the hurricane garage doors.
Right. The impact resistant.
Again,
yeah, that's
not my department, but it was good to hear when I found that out. Are you ready for a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old?
We are.
And everything that comes with it? Come on in.
So Jen, we're headed straight to the kitchen.
Yes, this is it. This is somehow where we all end up on any given day. There is my 2-year-old Mia, who apparently loves the camera, and you guys know my husband Jason.
Good to see you, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
All right. Good. Obviously, you've got a house full. How are you doing on supplies for the hurricane season?
You know, I think we do pretty well throughout the year. We have our stash of batteries all the time. We have the generator in the garage. Jason always has plenty of extra fuel on hand. I will admit, though, when it comes to water, when it comes to enough of the non-perishables, probably not as prepared as we should be.
Can we check your cabinets? What are we looking at here? What do we have?
This is embarrassing. Opening the cabinets, not prepared. But with kids in the house, there are always plenty of snacks. And, you know, goldfish, crackers, they tend to last. Yes, and the bunny crackers. They're in there. They tend to last a while. And, you know, we have beef jerky, graham crackers. So all of that is good to have on hand.
Granola bars. The key thing is just to have stuff you can eat without a stove or some way to prepare or cook. Max, it's a good thing Jen has a generator because in her neighborhood, you can see the power lines are above ground.
And I also see that on both sides of the house here that some of those power lines actually go through the trees, so power outages will be an issue.
We're talking about supplies, and we've had some conversations at work. You have a dog.
I do.
A big dog.
A huge dog, yes.
Here he comes.
Speak of the devil.
Hey.
Hi, baby.
And this is?
This is Diesel, all
hey,
115 pounds of him.
Now, how much does this guy eat?
He eats a lot, and you know, until you mentioned it, I never thought part of hurricane supplies included dog food, but he would be a very unhappy animal if we weren't stocking up on our dog food, so it's something we need to do. This is where it gets interesting.
Jen, your family's even bigger than I thought.
It's a bit of a petting zoo around here. Our girls love animals.
And who is this?
Her name is Pig. I know, not very creative, but that's her name.
And you've got chickens.
We have some chickens, yes. We have some geese. We have tortoises. We have all sorts of stuff back here.
Have you been through a hurricane with your farm?
No, we haven't. We moved out here about 3 years ago, so a hurricane is something we haven't experienced yet.
I actually asked a vet one time what you should do if you have livestock, and I was told really that most of the animals do better outside.
That's always been what we've thought, that we would leave them outside. Of course, not that we want anything to happen to any animals, but just because in the wild, that's how they're supposed to stay.
Sure.
So the pig, though, would probably at least go in the garage.
I noticed you guys have a trampoline in your backyard. Do you have a plan for this?
No plan at all. So any suggestions?
Actually, we had trampoline for our kids, and actually this is going to take a little bit of time because the best thing to do is probably to take the sides off of this and then just flip it upside down, and then you can tie it to the tree over there.
I mean, you see how easily I can pick that up. It's going to end up in your neighbor's yard for sure.
And I loved that Max confirmed with a veterinarian that when it comes to animals, the best thing to do is to keep them outdoors, because that is where animals like ours are the safest. And also, as far as the trampoline, I would have had no idea what to do, but now I know. Flip it upside down and tie it up.
Jen, I noticed you guys have a gas grill as well.
We do. We actually grill out quite often.
And if the power does go out during a hurricane, at least you'll have where to cook after the hurricane.
Does your husband have extra propane tanks for the grill?
He sure does, in the garage.
You know, the best part about that is you can store a lot of fuel safely in a garage, and you can cook for weeks after a storm if the power's out that long, like it was during Wilma. And I want to remind you, don't use a gas grill or any type of grill inside your house. Carbon monoxide, it's a deadly gas and it'll build up, so use the grill safely outdoors. Well, Jen, it looks like you and your husband have done a fantastic job preparing for the upcoming season.
Thank you. I have to say it has a lot to do with watching you guys all of these years.
Jen, one last thing. Do you have a carbon monoxide detector?
No, you got me, Max. We have smoke detectors, but no carbon monoxide detectors.
That's probably a good idea to have one or two, even, because even if you're careful with your generator, running it outside, you don't know exactly where your neighbors will place their generators, and I highly recommend carbon monoxide detectors.
And you know, Max, a simple investment, $20, could possibly save your life.
I hear every year Trent and Max say how important carbon monoxide detectors are, and while I do feel like my family is very prepared, that's one thing that we haven't gotten.
Well, Jen, thanks for letting us do a house call at your house today.
Thanks for coming over, guys. I learned a lot. Surprisingly, I thought I knew it all, but not the case.
Sounds good. We'll see you at the set.
All right, take care, guys. Bye.
When Hurricane House Call returns, we're headed to Davie to check back with the South Florida family we visited a year ago, and we'll see whether they learned from our previous visit and took our advice. This hurricane season, stay informed and be prepared. Stay with Local 10 News, 101.5 Light FM, Magic 102.7, and 790 The Ticket. We're back in Davie for another house call. And Max, we were here last year.
And I remember we had some issues here last time.
We sure did. So before we go in, let's take a look back at our last visit.
I noticed you have a shed in your backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, Max, and looking at this, I don't see any straps on this. Is that true? Do you see your vents on your roof? Mm-hmm. Do you know you need to prepare those in advance of a hurricane?
We do?
Do you have a carbon monoxide detector?
That's on the list.
Marietta, let me stop you right now if I can. You know, one of the lessons learned at Andrew, the doors that open outward did much better than the doors that open inward. Well, Trent, let's see if they took our advice and made the improvements.
Sounds good. Hey, Errol, Marietta, how are you?
How are you?
Good to see you again.
Hi, good seeing you.
Good to see you.
Wow, this is impressive. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we took your advice. We did a lot of changes. We got a hurricane storm door and impact glass.
Oh, the last time we were here, that was just regular glass, and we were worried that that was going to blow in during a storm.
Yeah.
And the old door opened inward, this one opens outward.
Exactly.
Does it feel good to be safe?
Yes. Yes, it does.
You guys have been busy, not only with your door, but I'm seeing landscaping, new fence. Can we
you
take
want
a
to see
look?
the back? Oh,
Absolutely.
come on. Yeah, we did a lot of changes back here. Lots of changes.
Wow, this doesn't even look like the same
I
backyard.
know. We totally redid the shed because, you know, it looked like it was about to fall down, right?
Yeah.
We had a little bit of arbor here.
I remember this shed. Last time I was here, I was down on
You
the
were
side.
poking holes underneath my shed.
I was digging underneath trying to figure out if it was connected.
Can't do that now.
Now, I told you to get some kind of expert out here to tell you whether or not it was strapped down. What did you find out?
Well, we went out, we got an expert. He came out, he said it would take a 10-ton crane to move this thing out of here.
We noticed on the other side when I just came in the back, it looks like a concrete pad. Is that what he was talking about?
It's on a concrete slab, yes.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
So you didn't have to worry about it being strapped down because yours is anchored straight to the concrete.
Anchored to the concrete.
You guys have also added the screen since we've been here last.
Yes, we did. We added the screen and we added the French doors in the back.
Now, if the hurricane is strong enough, this is going to go, but that can be replaced easily enough.
I know, I'm not too worried about that. We do have shutters that cover the French doors though. So.
Got you. Errol, you were telling me that these are not impact resistant?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why you have the tracks here so you can slide your panels on.
Correct.
How long does it take to put those shutters up all the way around the house?
About an hour, because I'm only doing downstairs.
Upstairs is easy. Upstairs we have the accordions, so all we have to do is just open up the windows, close the accordions, lock them, close the window shut.
Fantastic.
So there's one other thing that we did do, and that's we took your advice and we got a carbon monoxide detector.
Can we take a look?
Sure. Okay, Trent, here it is.
Oh, great. That's a perfect place for it.
That's great. You've got that now. Do you have one upstairs too, Marietta?
No, we do not.
That might be a good thing to do. Have one on both floors of your house.
It was a huge eye-opener to Errol and I mean, because there are a lot of things that we didn't think about. We just didn't think about it because nobody ever mentioned them to us. So there's certain things about hurricanes, and if no one tells you the things that you need to prepare for, you wouldn't know.
Marietta, I see your kerosene lamp. I also remember from last year you had lots of candles. Have you done anything about that?
I still have the candles and the lamp, and I know I wouldn't use them during hurricane season. So instead I'll be using flashlights.
That's great. You know, it really is important to have light after a hurricane. If the power does go out, then you want to make absolutely sure that you have plenty of batteries.
What other changes have happened in the last year?
Well, within the last 4 months, my parents are now here with us, and we're caregivers for them. So we've had to make a few changes, as you can see. We took the rail off, and we added a stair lift so that they can get up and down the stairs easily.
So you're caring for 2 more people in your home.
Yes.
More supplies. That's one big change.
Yes.
What is the condition of your parents to need the chair, if you don't mind me asking?
You know, my mom has rheumatoid arthritis, and so it makes it very difficult for her to move up and down the stairs. And my dad is on dialysis, so
oh wow,
yeah, so it makes it very, very difficult. And
do you have a plan for a hurricane for him to receive dialysis?
Yes, actually, we know that if a hurricane is coming, just like how everybody evacuates, he would be considered one who would need to go to a hospital.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. You know the plan. I might just suggest that you talk to the hospital and make absolutely clear on the timing on when they actually start accepting people that have medical needs.
I also have to be very concerned about medications and food supplies to my dad. So I take this very seriously because it's not a joking matter, because I get things that don't necessarily require refrigeration. So these are supplements because he doesn't eat all the time regular foods. So this is a full meal right here in 3 ounces, because for kidney patients, dialysis patients, you know, he can only take in 32 ounces maximum per day of fluid.
Sure.
Do you have to refrigerate any of this?
None of these require refrigeration.
And how about the medications? How many days supply?
Medication, usually we try to do the 90-day supply of medication, so it reduces the risk of them running out. So before the 90 days is up, then we replenish the medication. So it's very, very important to have all those things on hand.
And Max, we've talked about this for years. People that have to refrigerate their medication either have to have a backup power source to run a refrigerator, or they have to have a lot of ice on hand. In a case like Wilma, they're going to need enough ice to keep that medication cold for weeks.
You can't wait to the last minute to figure those things out. You want to have a plan and know exactly how you're going to take care of that.
Most definitely. You cannot do this haphazardly.
Well, Marietta, you should be very proud of what you guys have done. I'm impressed by all the changes you made in just a year.
Well, we took your advice to heart, and we did everything we thought was necessary to make us safe. You know, especially with my parents being here now, it's very important not to have to ad-lib, but just be prepared, and we feel really prepared.
Trent, this is one less family we're going to have to worry about this hurricane season.
You said it. Marietta, thanks again for your time.
Again.
Errol, great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Max, we got some more house calls to make. What do you say?
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to pay a visit to Zoo Miami, a place hit hard by Hurricane Andrew. Find out if they're ready for another storm when Hurricane House Call returns. Max, one of the most frequent emails we get at the station during hurricane season are people asking what to do with their pets during a storm.
And I can't think of anyone more qualified to talk about animals than Ron McGill at Zoo Miami.
What do you say we make a trip out to Zoo Miami and see what Ron does with all his animals?
Sounds good.
Max and I arrived at the zoo for a first-hand look at animal care. Our guide today is Ron McGill, the zoo spokesman who's been here for more than 30 years and knows firsthand the devastation caused by Hurricane Andrew in 1992. But a lot has changed here since then. Hey, Ron.
Hey, Trent, how you doing?
Good to
Welcome
see you.
To the zoo. Good to see you, Max. Welcome to the zoo. Pleasure seeing you guys.
Now, we came out today to ask you what you do with all your animals during a storm.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be done here. You know, we learned a lot of lessons from Hurricane Andrew. We became kind of like the role model for zoos. So come on in, I'll give you a look.
Ron, we're coming up here on the flamingos. This was one of the most iconic photos from the zoo during Andrew.
Yeah, you know, ironically, what we had to do with flamingos is because a lot of the birds, they have to be protected. And with the flamingos, they're wide open here. Being birds, they're very susceptible to high winds. So we had to manually go in there, catch every one of these birds, and then we used the public restroom. The men's room specifically is where we put them all in there. And it works out perfectly. Why? There are no windows. It's a tile floor. And as offensive as it may sound to some, it's fresh running water in there. So that was really kind of an iconic thing. I took this photograph of all the flamingos in the bathroom with all the urinals next to them, and Newsweek actually ran it in their magazine. It was like one of these things, oh my gosh, flamingos in a bathroom. But in effect, it is a perfect bunker.
After a look at the flamingos, Ron took us over to a concrete holding area where some animals are kept in individual stalls for safety during a storm.
And a lot of people are always asking me, they're saying, geez, Ron, what about the dangerous animals? This is not one of our dangerous animals. This is Crystal LeMaster. She's one of our primate keepers here. She takes care of these animals. Max Mayfield, Derek from Channel 10.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure.
And you know, this is part of what we have to do back here. We have to actually maintain these animals in these structures during the hurricane. So come on in here. I'll give you an idea of what it's like. You can see that this is all very strong poured concrete. There's what we call furniture in here. Basically, it keeps the animals occupied in the evening. They can sleep in these various areas. But then during a storm itself, the animal has the choice to climb up in here, and that's basically a solid bunker, concrete bunker that is not going to be compromised by any kind of storm.
And you can see how thick the metal is here in the concrete.
This is all thick welded metal, reinforced over and over again. So these structures really are quite strong in every respect.
All right, so Ron, we're obviously at the rhino exhibit.
Yeah, this is rhino. This is one of our pachyderms, and the pachyderms have a different type of night house, a different type of enclosure. It's a pachyderm barn, which basically allows wind and everything to kind of blow through it. It's the same that we use for elephants, for rhinos, for hippos. The thing about this, you'll see that this had poured concrete roofs. This is concrete and reinforced metal roofs, tens of thousands of pounds. And they weren't tied down to the tie beam before Andrew because we thought the weight itself would maintain it. Hurricane Andrew flipped those things off like they were made out of styrofoam.
That's amazing.
And this is where they would stay during a hurricane. So basically the wind blows through here. We have to be sure that we have tied down any kind of flying structure, any kind of flying debris to safely keep them in here. But the irony is, even during Hurricane Andrew, when winds were blowing like crazy, every rhino, every elephant, every hippo didn't have a scratch on it.
Now Ron, what is this place here?
Basically, this is the third type of holding pen that we have here at the zoo. This is where we keep animals like antelope, zebras, some of the wild bovines, the cattle. Each night they come in off their exhibit and they're kept in these open pens. And believe it or not, this is where they ride out the storm.
Next, Ron showed us where Mango, the orangutan, hides out.
Here's the back side of the exhibit. And the orangutans, gibbons, robo, you see the orangutan towards the end over there. And at the evening time, they'll just come in back here. This guillotine door opens up, and it gives them access right into their night house. But it's out of sight of the public view.
Well, Max, I wanted to take a little detour to check out the amphitheater. Remember, this was almost completely destroyed by Andrew 20 years ago.
And this was partially rebuilt after Andrew, but then Hurricane Wilma came through in 2005 and really did it in.
And it's really gorgeous. And when it opens later on this summer, it'll have a cover going from the back row all the way across the stage.
And one of the best parts, maybe this building right here.
Yeah, Ron tells us this is solid poured concrete and all the glass is impact resistant.
And it will withstand winds up to 200 miles per hour.
Boy, should be great when it opens. From there, we took a look at something new at the zoo.
So here we have one of the new generators that we've installed throughout the zoo. This is a backup system for our Amazon and Beyond exhibit. And basically what this does is life support for things like our 50,000 gallon aquarium. You know, people don't think if the power goes out, what happens if you have an aquarium? That needs to constantly be aerated or you're going to lose your fish. So we have a priceless collection of fish here. There's several of these generators located throughout the park, and they're specifically to maintain that life system.
One of the lessons learned from Andrew, you didn't have all these back then.
Absolutely. We had one large generator in several areas. Was not enough to really protect every section of the zoo.
Max, we moved inside the aviary here at Zoo Miami and kind of wondering what changes have taken place here.
Ron, what happened here at Andrew?
Well, this probably was the iconic symbol of the destruction of Hurricane Andrew. This area, the previous area that was here, the whole thing came down like a house of cards.
Even the pilings here.
Yeah,
on the
these
corners.
pilings are totally different than what we had before. Before we had pressure treated wood, and it basically came down like a house of cards, and we lost close to 100 birds in here. This entire aviary is totally new. The engineering, the structures are all totally new. The netting is special netting, and if it does break, each section is set up in such a way that a compartment would break and the whole aviary doesn't come down.
Well, Max, it sure has been a fun day here at Zoo Miami. We've learned a lot about how they take care of their animals.
We have, and these animals are going to be in a lot better shape come the next hurricane.
And of course, before we go, we have to check in with one of Zoo Miami's favorite exhibits. Here you go. Max and I left the zoo feeling pretty good about the safety of the animals and the way they're protected during hurricane season. And up next, we'll visit a South Florida landmark to see how they prepare for the upcoming hurricane season.
And we'll see if they hit a home run in their preparations.
This hurricane season, stay informed and be prepared. Stay with Local 10 News, 101.5 Light FM, Magic 102.7 and 790 The Ticket.
Drive the left and deep, get!
This is the Marlins' new ballpark. And a new landmark in South Florida. Max, we're here at Marlins Park, and we're going to see Claude. Claude oversaw the construction of the entire ballpark.
And we'll see if the Miami Marlins are prepared.
All right. Hey, Claude, how are you?
Hey, Trent.
Good
Doing well.
You.
Hey, Max.
Good to see you again.
Doing well?
This place has changed pretty fast over the last year.
No, it's nice. Just the last few months, major changes, and now that we're opened, you know, the fans are really enjoying it.
You know, this West Plaza is so beautiful with all this glass. Hurricane season's here. What do you guys do with this when we have a storm?
Well, you know, with the video board and the metal panels and the curtain wall, the stucco and the art glass, all that meets Category 4 storms. So in terms of the exterior skin, we feel really good about this. Some of the stuff that we're concerned with on the West Plaza, you know, one of the elements we dealt with is all these garbage cans were bolted down. So, you know, if ever we get into a few warnings, we don't have to worry about moving these things. One of the elements that we would remove, and you can see this one, even though it's fairly heavy, it would move. So we would take these. We have 22 throughout the exterior of the building. People think that, you know, once the roof is on, the wall is closed. Not a lot of things to do inside, but with the amount of rain, because of the gaps in the roof, we really have to secure a lot of areas, and I'd like to show you that once we get inside.
Can we go now?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Fantastic.
go. Right now we're on the promenade level, which is our main concourse. And Trent, Max, one of the things, you know, people don't think about is all these program carts, our retail locations, our, you know, concessions kiosks would have to be moved in the case of a storm.
How long will it take to secure everything?
You know, for us, this is just dedicating a team of people, and right now for us to do all levels, we're probably talking anywhere between 4 and 6 hours.
You guys have a lot of signage on the field. Is there a plan for that?
Yeah, Trent, that's a very good question. Even though when you look at it, and we're starting the net behind home plate, all of that would be removed, so it would become a non-issue. And as well, when you look at the signage where the Valero, Miccosukee, even perhaps the Pepsi that's around the column, all of that would be secured, because we want to make sure that we mitigate anything that can fly around.
Claude, when you get close to these walls, they're bigger than they look from back there.
I know, it's quite the difference, and you know, it's a 240-foot opening, Trend Max, that when you look at the height, so it's 60 feet high, 40 feet wide, 6 of these panels, and you know, what a view of downtown when it's open. We have 12 tie-down procedures, and if you look inside, you can see where this lever here is actually modified and then pressed down. There's an opening right there. We have 12 of these locations, so each of the panels will have 2 of these.
The glass here also Category 4 storm?
Yeah, Category 4 storm, 146 miles an hour. So, I mean, a lot of time was spent on the design phase, making sure that this was safe for all our fans.
Well, this is a view not many people get to see.
Yeah, this is, look at the perspective you're seeing even from the roof. And right now we're about 150 feet high. And you can clearly see where the fixed portion of the roof and then where the roof itself will slide, the 3 panels. The difference between the center panel and the 2 other panels is 50 feet high. So it gives you a perspective of scale even from here.
So Nelson, these are the anchor points here?
Yes, that's correct. That is throughout the whole track, and basically the tie downs go tie down there whenever it is in the hurricane position.
And you can see trend on both sides, and then that filters on everything that we're seeing down the open path there. That's for this center roof track. And you're seeing the exact same thing on the other side. So it really allows us to fix the roof and make sure there's no movement during heavy winds.
Claude, this has been a fantastic tour of the ballpark.
And really the Marlins are doing the same thing that we homeowners should be doing. Have a hurricane plan that we can execute, secure your home, and bring in all those loose items.
You know, it really is a beautiful facility. Claude, thank you for your time. Max and I got to make another hurricane house call.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
You bet. Max, new people move to South Florida all the time. Some people have never even been through a hurricane season.
We found a new homeowner in Crest. Let's check out her home.
All right. Hi, you must be Lisa.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Trent. Nice to meet
Trent.
you.
Good to see
Lisa
you.
and Max.
Max, good to meet you.
Can we start outside?
Of course.
All right. We understand you've only been in this house about a year.
That's true.
Have you been through a hurricane season, I guess, last year?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
First thing I always like to ask people, do you have shutters?
I have got shutters. I've got the typical aluminum shutters from the 60s and 70s.
Okay. They were left by your previous owner?
They were. I sort of inherited them when I purchased the home.
Okay, and I guess they told you you had all the parts you needed.
They told me I did. They're sitting back there in the storage room.
These over here are different than the ones you have on your windows.
Yeah, Max, I've never seen this type of shutter before.
I actually had some like this on my house in Andrew, and I'm not even sure they make those anymore. I'm not sure if they meet the code, but you might want to check on that. But the main thing is just to be sure you know where all the parts go for all the windows and the doors.
And let's take a look at your side windows here, because Max noticed this on the way up. You've got the type of shutters that you're going to have to put the railing in on the bottom. And I don't know if you notice, somewhere along the line they've repainted.
You're right.
It's going to take a little bit of elbow grease for you to break these free.
Undo that.
Right.
They're completely stuck.
Max, one other thing you noticed was that each rail may be custom for each window.
Right, these sills that go along the bottom look like the holes are different, so you need to figure out which sills go with which window.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's no big deal, but just it's going to take some time to lay everything out and make sure they fit. The headers are up here, so you don't have to worry about that, but there's another piece that goes to the bottom, and you want to be sure you know which ones go where.
Lisa, one thing I didn't even ask, are these storm impact resistant windows?
They are. So I've been told when I purchased the home. I believe they are.
That's different then. Then you don't even have to have the shutter. That's the icing on the cake. Whatever shutters you have, if those are impact resistant all the way around, that's good.
This is the fun part about owning a new home. You get the questions you go, but if you've got the shutters, if it's a really big, powerful storm, extra protection never hurts. If you can get these shutters up on top of your impact resistant, Max, she's going to be in great shape.
Yeah. And one thing that happens, even with these impact resistant windows are really, really good, but you're going to have flying debris. I mean, you're going to have coconuts and other limbs from trees, and they're going to hit this, and they're going to scratch it and dent it, and there's some of these you may have to replace even though the glass will not break. And somewhere you're going to want to replace those, and it's going to be hard to get windows to replace after hurricanes. So yeah, if you can protect that, you've got double coverage.
Right, and I'd feel safer as well.
I noticed a pool out back. Can we check that out?
Of course.
Wow, this is beautiful, Lisa.
Thank you, Trent.
Have you ever owned a pool before in South Florida?
This is my first one.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me ask you the $1,000,000 question. Do you put your furniture in the bottom of your pool when a storm comes?
You're kidding, right?
No, don't do it. It was a test.
Oh.
The reason you don't do it, a lot of people do, and what they end up doing is they cause more damage to the bottom or lining of their pool than they're saving in the furniture. So do not throw your furniture in the bottom of that pool. because you're going to cost yourself a fortune in repairs.
And I'm guessing that the screen enclosure would probably fly to the heavens, no?
Yeah, chances are if the storm's powerful enough, you're going to lose the screening, bottom line. Now, as far as the integrity of the structure may stay. And Max, we've heard it discussed several times, if the storm is strong enough, to cut slices in the screening around the enclosure.
And very importantly, to make sure you have homeowner's insurance.
Yes. Lisa, where are your shutters at?
Well, they're all back in the storage room, Trent.
Do you mind if we take a look?
No, we can go have a look.
All right, lead the way.
Sure.
Wow, Lisa, who are these beautiful young ladies?
These are my daughters. This is Scarlett and Rachel.
Hi, Scarlett. Rachel, how are you?
Hey, ladies.
Oh, she's shy. Looks like you got a little bit of help for hurricane season, right?
There you go. We've got our candy stash, that's for sure.
Keep some of that around for your hurricane supplies as well. All right. That's them.
Yeah, now these are new ones. Yeah, these are good. Yeah, these are good heavy shutters.
And here are your actual rails. It looks like these may be the ones that go on front, but see how these are labeled with a number 5?
Okay.
You'll want to label them to where you can actually understand them.
And all these parts here, you know, because you do have some different types of shutters, that's what you want to figure out, what goes where.
Yeah, and even the bags, label those too so you know which goes to what.
All right.
And boy, I tell you what, in case you're wondering at home why you need to go through a dry run, where did those go? Where did those parts go? Do I have all of them here? Max, this is not an easy process repairing your house.
You've made a believer of me. I can see why.
I'm going to make one other suggestion. You have stuff here now, but I know 2 twin girls, things get active, things are going to get cleared out. Right now, these panels aren't secured to anything. These weigh a ton.
Yes.
And in case the girls ever come back here and are playing and you're not around, if they knock these panels over on them, they could really get hurt. So you may want to get some kind of strap that comes around like a bungee cord and then secures to a 2x4 in your wall. Couple dollar investment could really save you a trip to the hospital.
Great idea. What I learned is I've really got to get prepared. I hadn't realized how much was involved in this, how many shutters there must be to cover the house. So I've got a little mental checklist I'm working on.
Lisa, thank you so much for opening up your home. It was a pleasure to meet you and your girls.
Thank you, Max.
Stay safe this season, all right?
Thank you. I learned a lot.
All right. Hopefully, if you're a new homeowner here in South Florida, you picked up a few valuable tips as well. Well, we come to the end of another round of Hurricane House Calls.
I hope you learned some valuable lessons as we've traveled around South Florida, perhaps to your neighborhood.
And this hurricane season, stay with Local 10, and for the very latest storm information, local10.com and justweather.com.
Thanks for joining us. Stay safe.